the museum and is the co-instructor of museum studies with me and all the students. You want to raise your hand? Yeah, museum studies. They're all here. It's their last day of class, so this is a treat for them. So I'm going to hand it over to Miriam Intrator from Ohio Libraries, and the libraries have been a partner with this program since its inception, both having sessions for the students and allowing us to borrow artifacts. So we're grateful for that. So I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Kennedy, for hosting us. Thank you, Museum Studies students, for the amazing work you did on this exhibit. And thank you especially for our artists presenting today. We really appreciate your time and participation. My name is Dr. Miriam Intrator. I'm head of Archives and Special Collections and Rare Book Librarian. And it's my pleasure and honor to introduce today's artists, which I will do in alphabetical order, which is also how they will then speak. For people in the room and online, please hold all your questions until all the artists have presented. We'll then transition to the Q&A. I'll manage questions on the chat. And then finally, for those of you who are here in person, we do have Annabelle from the Museum Studies class who's going to lead us in a zine making hands-on activity after. So stick around for that if you are able to. Okay. So, artist and printer Sarah Brown grew up in the woods. She now uses a few tons of vintage letterpress equipment to continue to explore the natural world. She combines hand-set type with hand-carved image blocks like lino cuts and wood engravings, then prints them one color at a time in letterpress machines from the 40s and 50s. Her work is displayed in shops and homes across the country and can be found online at Questionable Press. Crystal Cawley is an artist who works with paper, textiles, collected objects, and repurposed materials. Her work explores ideas of identity, time, memory, and loss, and draws on various traditional skills like embroidery and letterpress printing. She teaches in the Continuing and Professional Studies program at the Maine College of Art in Portland, Maine, and is an artist member of Portland's Pickwick Independent Press, a printmaking collective. She's shown her work around the US and in England, Greece, and Japan. Her works in the collections of the Boston Public Library, Columbia University, Library of Congress, Maine Women Writers Collection, MoMA Franklin Furnace Artist Book Collection, the Smithsonian Institution Graphic Arts Collection at the National Museum of American History, and the Munakata Shiko Museum in Japan, among others. She has received grants from the Maine Arts Commission, the Berkshire Taconic Community Foundation, and the Pollock-Krasner Foundation. Maureen Cummins has cranked presses from California to the Eastern Arctic and produced over 40 limited edition artist books. Her books are based on subject matter as diverse as slave narratives, the Salem witch trials, turn of the century gay love letters, the history of lobotomies, and the Newark Rebellion of 1967. Cummins was one of 5 artists on Swarthmore College's Friends, Peace, and Sanctuary project, working with Syrian and Iraqi war refugees to tell their stories. She is represented in over 100 permanent public collections, has received over a dozen grants and funded residencies, and was recently a Carmiel Fellow at UCLA researching radical gay and lesbian presses from the 60s and 70s. Cummins lives and works in Woodstock, New York. Casey Gardner writes, draws, prints, and binds limited edition artist books with her Set in Motion press in Berkeley, California. In Space, Movement, and Time, she forms multi-layered narrative paths through the letterpress printed pages of her books. Composing story, imagery, and poetic diagramming, she explores facets of humanity in relation to forces in the natural world. Grounded in research, her narratives examine the interchange of scientific understanding and human meaning. She has a BS in journalism from Colorado University Boulder and a BFA in graphic design and printmaking from California College of the Arts. Her award-winning work is exhibited and collected nationally and internationally. Haein Song is an artist working primarily with books as her medium and a fellow of Designer Bookbinders UK. She uses traditional bookbinding techniques to create unique or limited edition books, while employing a variety of printmaking methods, including lino cut, dry point, etching, cyanotype, monoprint, and letterpress printing for artist books and for the end papers of fine bindings. With a strong interest in the physicality of making and understanding the process of making, she explores qualities of transience, fragility, intangibility, and absurdity in both the concept and aesthetic of her work. Her fine bindings and artist books are held in many private collections in the UK and USA, and in public collections including the British Library, the Bodleian, the Wellcome Collection, V&A National Art Library, Library of Congress, Stanford, the Getty Research Institute, Yale, Harvard, UCLA, UC Berkeley, Morgan Library, the Rijksmuseum, among others. Born in Seoul, South Korea, she now lives and works in London. So welcome all of you. And Sarah, if you want to take us away, I have your images. So should I just put up the first one? Or do you want to try to share your screen? Okay, just unmute when you're ready to. Yeah.
Yeah, unmute. Okay, hi y'all, I'm Sarah. Was excited to hear all these other folks who are going to present as letterpress printers too, because I'm a letterpress printer, and it's really fun to get to hear what other people have to say about this medium that I'm pretty obsessed with. So I'm a self-taught letterpress printer. I took some printing in college, so I understood the basics of general printing practices, but I had never done any letterpress printing until I bought, well, I hadn't even done it then, but I bought a press from Cynthia Conley when I worked at a farmer's market in DC with her. She's a letterpress printer in the DC area, and then I basically hauled that around for a few years and knew I needed some other things to go with that press. It was a little pilot press, tabletop press, but I didn't know what they were, and I didn't really know much about printing. I understood the mechanics of the machine that I owned, just as a concept. So I looked around, and I'm from West Virginia, and I went to a little newspaper in West Virginia and found a Heidelberg windmill, which is a fully automated platen press from the 50s, and pretty much the workings of an entire print shop. And they were about to scrap it in like 2 weeks. So I decided to buy it all for the price of the scrap. And I called some good buddies and had them move it into a old warehouse by a train station in my hometown. And I moved home and I learned to run it. And that's like, the statement is a lot easier to say than the process because I taught myself to run a fully automated platen press without having done any letterpress. So once I figured out how to do it, I had to figure out what to make. And most people that have that type of machine make greeting cards or wedding announcements. So I chose the greeting card route and kind of cut my teeth on the greeting card world. I apprenticed with a few places who make greeting cards, like Igloo Letterpress in Columbus and Power and Light in Silver City, New Mexico. And I learned from those folks and from the kind of industrial side of letterpress printing that most people work with polymer plates. I'm assuming mostly that everyone here understands what letterpress printing is, the basics, but it's so I'm not going to get into the history because I'm really not a historian. I am a very tactile person who fell in love with the mechanics of the machines. So I'm happy to share what I know about the history of letterpress, but I'm not the one to tell you the history of the letterpress process. So anyway, I learned that from these folks that I apprenticed with that most of the time these days in commercial letterpress printing, people work with polymer plates and print from those. So it's drawings that are then potentially even computer generated that are turned into a plastic plate that's mounted and printed in the press. And I learned to do it, but it wasn't that engaging. My sister says that I always find the hardest path to the solution. So I committed to working with hand set type and hand carved images pretty early on, like before I really knew much. Okay, so within that, I took a wood engraving class from Jim Horton, who is a wood engraver in Michigan, and he studied with some of the last industrial wood engravers that were in Chicago. Wood engraving developed within the letterpress printing process in the 1800s. It combined a few printing processes that were already in use but it kind of was perfected to accompany wood type or type in general. Previously, to join an image with text, you'd have to print them separately. In the industrial realm, it was most likely a metal engraving or a woodcut. And a woodcut is a relief image making process that's with the grain of the wood. So it's like, a plank of wood. You carve into it, and everything that you leave on the surface is what prints, what gets inked and print. But because it was on the grain of the wood, after thousands of prints in an industrial machine, those would start to compress and break down. And a metal engraving had the same issues. You have to use a pretty soft metal to carve into, but it also won't hold up in the press for a long time. And I don't do any metal engraving. I know more about woodcuts because I can do them. I think there was other challenges in metal engraving to print with type, like because they're not the same height, that maybe don't involve the same printing processes. But anyway, so wood engraving was invented. It uses the end grain of wood. So instead of using it with the grain and printing that surface, the wood is cut so the grain is straight up. And only certain types of wood are used. Traditionally, it was Turkish boxwood was used, but this process became a pretty major industrial art, and so much so that Turkish boxwood was over-harvested almost to extinction for this process. So in the States, we use either holly or hard rock maple. And anyway, there's just specifics about the kind of wood that you can use, because it has to be really fine, but it has to be really strong. And so you carve into it with an engraving tool, which is not a chisel shape. It comes to a fine point, and your hand motion's a little different, but you're basically almost pushing the fibers of the wood out. And so you can gain a really fine line. It's probably the finest line that you can make. Well, that's what the wood engravers like to say. I don't really know, but Jim Horton told me it's the finest line you can make in a relief image making process. And you can cut it to type high and print it with your type. Though there are some technicalities with that about pressure and everything, you can print an image and type at the same time. So that was a pretty big revolution in the printing world. If you think of like old seed catalogs or Victorian era images, that's like really the most notable industrial use of wood engraving. It's very, very fine lines and mostly just black and white images. So wood engraving, like the letterpress process, began to be replaced by other printing methods, but it's now recognized as an art, and it's within the book arts. So Jim and I found out that there is a apprenticeship grant through the state of Ohio, and decided to apply for it, and we received it, and he suggested I make a book. So I guess that's what I did. I decided to make a book. My work is always steeped in the natural world. I'm often just exploring things that I want to know about or look at more, and then processing it through my art. And I also think there's a through line in my art of taking a piece of paper and making it interactive, almost an experience. Like even if you think about a greeting card, you're taking a flat piece of paper, and just by putting one fold in it, you're creating a full experience for someone, and actually for more than one person, because the person has to buy the card, write in it, send it to someone, and then that other person has a full experience of receiving the card, seeing the front, and then opening it. And it's like, it's a moment that a human gets to experience with just a piece of paper. So it's not like it changes the significance of a sheet of paper. So with that kind of playful interactiveness in mind, and with my interest in the natural world, I decided to read and understand the life cycle of the fungal kingdom. And so I wrote up my basic understanding of it, and I had a few mycologists check it over to see if I kind of got it right, and they said I kind of got it right. And then I made images to pair with it. So as you can see in this first one, each page has one sheet and then a small sheet over top of it. And so the sheet that's on the top part is what you can see from the forest floor. And then Miriam, if you can go to the second image. Oh, maybe I didn't send it the right ones. Okay, well, anyway, so they flip up. Oh, that's too bad. What's the third image I sent you? Okay. Well, they flip up. That's too bad. Sorry. But you can see it in this exhibit that you're hopefully going to see. The little pages flip up and you can see the mycelium and the growth underneath. So it's a moment of reveal of the underlayer of this complete kingdom that we live around, but we only see this tiny little bit of it when the fungus fruits, and that's a mushroom. That's what we get to see. So this was it was a process for sure. I had to learn to make a book. I had to write it and carve all the images, and I put it together, and I think I made it in 2018. It's the only book I've made. I'm definitely interested in making more books. Since then I've really concentrated on another interactive paper wood engraved image process. I make paper sculptures, so people get a sheet of paper that's cut and creased and printed, and they turn it into a little paper sculpture that I sell. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
I see your little hands moving. I can't hear you, but I appreciate the
They're applauding. They're applauding.
Great.
All right, Crystal.
See, there, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes, please go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. When I talked to Miriam about how to do this, I decided I was gonna, instead of having images, that I'm gonna just hold things up. So I'm gonna be a little like a game show host here, holding things up like this.
Here we go.
This is the first time I ever saw the story of the yellow wallpaper. This is a $1 paperback I found in a thrift store when I was in grad school. And when I read it, I hadn't ever heard of it before. I hadn't heard of Gilman either. And it made an impact on me such that some years later, when I was making artist books, I realized that it would be a wonderful book because of the visual and other kinds of tactile imagery in it to make an artist book. So this is my book, which is in the exhibition. The page that you see in the exhibition is the title page with the frontispiece, which is a piece of torn paper. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. The book is printed letterpress. And for those of you who've never done or seen letterpress before, I quickly set a stick of type such as I printed the book from. And so this is lead type. Each letter is a separate piece of lead that has to be set to make the pages of the book, to print them. So that printing the text and getting the text right was the first step in the book. I like to start from the inside and work out. And also, because you guys are probably going to be doing a lot of writing in your professional lives, the best money I spent was on a proofreader, because we never see our own mistakes, and you need to get somebody else to read it so you don't mess up. Let's see. The title page, well, the frontispiece was made using a paper decorating technique called paste paper. And it's a very traditional technique that book artists have used for a very long time. You make a flower paste with pigment in it, and you put it on paper, and you manipulate it with tools. It's kind of like finger painting, but with tools, and you can make very subtle things. So one of the things about me and making additions of things, that is things that are supposed to be a number of things that are all the same, I can't ever quite get them to be all identical. And it was a problem when I was a printmaking student. My printmaking teachers were not happy with me about this. I kind of liked the more one-of-a-kind sorts of things. So to do this, I had to make all those frontispieces the same. So I took my paste papers and I made tearing templates for all the things that I had to make the same. And so that I would end up tearing the paper down and I'd have basically the same thing. But what I like about this is that they're not all identical, but they're all, for my purposes, close enough. And everybody's getting about the same thing when they get one of these books. So the end sheets of the book, which are the parts that are right inside the cover, these were made by taking an old piece of lace and gluing it onto a board. And then I took paper doilies and glued them on the board. And I used this as my printing plate and made these for the book. The other thing I do when I work is if I have a plate I like this one, I will make stacks of things on different papers and different inks so that I have a lot of raw materials to play around with and work with when I get there. And Annabelle Hernandez, hello. Hi. Annabelle and I talked. She picked the book and I sent her some of this. So if you want to see it in person, she has some. Okay. So for the very first print, I used that plate on a stained paper that I stained. Let me take this out. And what I wanted the prints in the book to do is to mimic the downward spiral of the main character's mental state. In the book, the woman is having a mental breakdown, and she goes from seeing this kind of dirty wallpaper in the room that she's kind of made to stay in as a way to rest, to get better after this, after a physical ailment. But as the book goes on, she starts to see more and more dire and actually kind of gross things in the wallpaper, and until finally everything just kind of falls apart. So the first one I have is just showing possibly a stained wallpaper in an old room. But the next one, which starts with the same print, this, has something else going on in the back as she starts talking about imagery that's pulsating, things that are moving in the wallpaper, or weird eyes that are staring at her. And then finally, the very last one is made up of lots of layers of tracing paper. And again, I used the same idea of tearing templates, where I just tore up the various pieces of paper and laminated them together. And the last one has even though it's the thinnest and seems the most fragile, it has the harshest colors and the harshest patterns to reflect the fact that by the end, she's seeing women besides her trapped behind the wallpaper, and she has to tear the wallpaper off the wall to free everybody and to get herself out of this state. So that was the sequence of the prints. And then for the final thing, this is the book bound. And while I like this color, I thought it was a little too plain. So I created a dust cover for it using some of the same paper laminating techniques that I used for the prints. And there's the finished book with a letterpress label. Ta-da! Thank you.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Let me see if I can. All right. Maureen, if you are ready, I will spotlight you next, and I need to get your images up as well.
First, I'd like to show some.
Yeah, that's fine. You are going to have to really.
Can you hear me now?
Does this help? I don't know. We'll try this. Okay, go ahead.
First off, who chose my book? All right, what's your name?
My name is Sean Epler.
Hey, thanks, Sean. And it's so funny because Crystal, I'm so excited that you're here because I went to Skidmore back in the fall to talk to a class called Madness and the Imagination, and they had your book, and I fell in love with it. And So I was talking about your book, talking about my book. So definitely kindred spirits. So in my work, I go into archives often, and I am looking at books and often riffing on books. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great,
Yes.
great. So there's a lot I could talk about fetus envy in terms of the inspiration and world events that were happening because the book was made before the Roe reversal. But what I want to concentrate on in these 5 or 6 minutes is the relationship between the books I was looking at that inspired me and that I wanted to satirize and the actual book that I created. So this is a copy of Fetus Envy, the book that Sean chose. And I'm going to show 1 or 2 images. Here's one of the fallopian tubes. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. And here's another. And take a look at the title page, the cover again. And then I'm going to show this book. So I was looking to this book purely in physical terms. This book, Technique of Contraception, and another book called Stuttering, Its Cause and Cure. So I took the language, Its Cause and Cure, from the Stuttering book, and then I took almost exactly the design of this book for the cover of my book. I wanted it to look like a medical text from that period. I'm also going to show, before we get to before Miriam starts her slides, the actual book that I satirized. It's called Sane Sex Life and Sane Sex Living. It has no title on the cover. The spine is gone, but the spine would have held the title of the book. I also want to show quickly the title page of this book because one of the slides Miriam is going to show is the title page that I made. Okay, so this book that I was riffing on is from 1911, I believe. It's 19 teens. Okay, go ahead, Miriam. Sorry. My best friend's name is Miriam, so I called you Mir, just like I always call her. All right, so there's the title, the cover page, the cover of the book, which you just saw. Next. Okay, so this is kind of funny and telling because when I was sending slides to Miriam for this Zoom, for this Teams meeting, I thought that this was the title page, and it's actually not. It's the title page for the back of the book illustrations. And one of the reasons I wanted to work with this book is because it had this portfolio of illustrations at the back of the book. And the book is ostensibly about how couples can have a harmonious marriage. It's basically, at least it's supposedly a marriage manual of how to have a happy, healthy family. But really, it's a sex manual because the only images in this book are of women's anatomy. There is no, it's a book that's made for men. And it's very telling in terms of the assumptions about sexuality from that time because you didn't need to have male anatomy because the woman was the passive partner. She didn't need to know anything about male anatomy, physiology, the sexual act. The man was in charge. Next. Okay, so this is my title page that is similar to the one that I showed you and that title page for the illustration the set of illustrations in the back. I'm using almost exactly the same typefaces. What I did also do was look at a lot of other medical texts from that time, and some of them that actually were medical texts, not this sort of like faux sex manual, had this design, this sort of like inverted triangle design with a lot of text. And I really wanted to mimic that design because if you look at this page, if any of you are graphic designers, it really has a certain kind of self-conscious sense of importance and almost bombastic. And I riffed on that in the actual text. I also riffed on the logo design, which looks like the caduceus that is used in the medical profession, but instead of this snake snaking up, it's actually two entwining sperm. I had a lot of fun with this book. Next. Okay, so there you can actually, this close-up, you can actually read the text better. I'm just going to quickly read the subtitle. And this book that I was my original source material was published by the Eugenics Publishing Company. I called my, as a satire, I called my publishing company Modern Eugenics Publishing. And this is what the subtitle, how it reads. Proud successor to the Eugenics Publishing Company, disseminators of numerous educational tracts on feminine hygiene, same-sex practices, eugenic living, including, and these, some of these are actual titles and some of them I made up. Sexual Continence, Same-Sex Life and Same-Sex Living, How to Make Your Marriage Partner More Compatible, Woman and the New Race by Margaret Sanger, and For the Good of the Race, a catalog of outstanding works by foremost authorities. Correction, those are actually all actual titles from that time period. Later in the book, I start riffing on some of those titles in an interesting way. Okay, next. So these, I purposely showed you the color versions of these images earlier so that you would see how different they are. This book is very small. The images are tiny. They're in black and white. I wanted to make a bigger book and I wanted it to be colorful. Next. Here's the fallopian tubes. By the way, I did some research on this particular book, and even the science in this book, the science of reproduction, is completely off. Like none of it is scientific. Yeah, like they had this whole thing in this illustration about how the ovum is passive and the sperm comes to get the ovum. And I read in modern texts about how that it seems that way, but it's not really that way, that the ovum is actually very active and both sexual elements are doing an equal amount of activity to get to each other. Next. Okay, so that again, these images are black and white. They're tiny. I really wanted to separate each one out and really concentrate on the image of the fetus in the womb. So in the next image, you'll see how I changed, how I both used that image and also really changed it. And the last image, next. The last image really has nothing to do with my book. I didn't use it, but I'm going to use it for some future project because it's an image of a woman's postmenopausal body, and some of the language in the blurb and also the image itself I find to be so misogynist and disturbing that kind of horrifying that I want to use it in a future project. I could say a lot more, but in the interest of time, I will stop there. Thank you.
Casey, let me get your images up and spotlight you. You want me to go ahead and start sharing?
I think you have to. I think it's muted.
Oh. Sorry, Casey. There's two different laptops in play here. Do you want me to go ahead and start sharing the image right away? Oh, it's not letting me now. Hold on. It was an option. Oh, maybe I have to stop spotlighting first. Let's try this. Oh, says she's not muted. Anyone?
Must be on her end.
Yeah.
Um,
Or microphone.
Oh, there you. We had you for a second.
All right,
Yeah.
here I am. Hello.
Yeah. Yay. Okay.
Okay,
What-
so this is my book, Body of Inquiry, and it was really taught me how I wanted to approach my bookmaking. I'm a letterpress printer, and it taught me about that inquiry, and that curiosity was really a fine path for me as a way of making art. And that what I really cared about was learning something and trying to understand something. So that whole book was teaching me how to become an artist, even though I learned how to become an artist in art school. How I really wanted to make books became apparent in that piece. And okay, you can show that first slide of the book, and then the second slide, probably. The first slide just kind of, oh no, the first slide is good. This is the piece that the book is based on. It's an anatomical model, and I'd had her for probably 10 or 20 years before I made the book, and I was always curious about her. I found her in an Edmunds scientific catalog, and I loved, even though the picture of her was really small in the catalog, I loved her sort of nonchalant vulnerability. And I named her Torso Woman, and I also named her Our Lady of Serene Evisceration. And she stayed in my imagination. I moved around a lot, and I carried her with her, and I just always wondered, you know, what was so appealing, and what really drew me to her. And so that was why I was making the book. And what I needed to find out when I was making the book was, what kind of world was she going to live in? She's a three-dimensional object with lots of movable parts. How do I create something that's two-dimensional? A book is three-dimensional, but the page is two-dimensional. What do I do to bring her alive, and what kind of world does she live in? Or my work is a big part of my discovery in art making. Like, where does this person live, so that I can continue to be curious, and that the reader can be curious? And so I didn't know, like, there were times when I was like, do I put her in a forest? What do I do? And I decided she was going to be kind of on a plinth, the way she is there. And then also the structure of the book was my curiosity. So you can show the next image, Miriam. So when I was at the Clooney, I saw this triptych, and that gave me the idea to, because this kind of related to Our Lady of Serene Evisceration. So that was kind of why I was sort of primed to look at this image, but also it gave me the structure of the book, which opens as a triptych. And then it also gave me a way of creating different worlds as prisms to look at her through, and to use her actually as sort of a conduit for inquiry. So it turned out that I was looking at how the body works, and also how different physical aspects of the body, going back to atomic and going into the organs. And so that was the part that was fascinating to me, to actually kind of conflate a meaning with science for myself. And that was what, if I would create different sections of the book, it gave me a way to clarify what I was actually learning, and to clarify what her meaning was for me, which is of course still a mystery. Let's see, the other thing I wanted, there were a couple things I wanted to that I really like about remembering making this book was, I think you can go to the next one, Miriam. So you can see there's the way that the structure of the book works is that there's little side panels on the sides. Those are actually articulated and actually spines. And I wanted that to happen that way because I felt like that also created her sort of in a triptych form that could open up. And the form of that with the different spines also allowed me to create these different worlds. So you can see the exterior two panels are about scientific instruments, and those I found coincidentally, and also other scientific catalogs that I found in the Doe Library at Berkeley. I was just wandering around the stacks and I found these scientific catalogs from the early part of the 20th century. And I use those to sort of convey how we use instruments to ascertain or to kind of understand or look into aspects that are usually invisible and can't be sensually ascertained. So those were the role of the scientific instruments, and then those I just sort of created new meanings for, of different parts of being human that are mysterious. So let's see. I'm just seeing if there was a few points I just wanted to make. Yeah, so I think that's all I wanted to say about that. I'll look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey.
Okay. Haein, did you want to try sharing your screen?
I think it might be easier for you to share. I mean, I could try if it doesn't work.
Not a problem. If you want to, I will get it up.
Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Miriam, for inviting me to the event. She sent me some photos of the exhibition, which looked wonderful. And my name is Haein Song, and I'm an artist, bookbinder, and printmaker. And I like using my hands and enjoy being fully involved in the process of making. These 6 images show some of the process I use to make books. There are 2 different branches of my work, artist books and fine bindings. If you go to next 4 slides shows 2 latest artist books. Most of my books, the contents are drawn from my own experience. Then those contents were expressed via image making and writing using different printmaking methods like lino cut, etching, cyanotype, as well as letterpress printing for writing. My 2 recent books explore the themes of memory, time, light, and ancestry using cyanotypes, all made from paper foldings. So if you go to next 6 slides are examples of fine bindings. In fine binding, we use traditional bookbinding techniques like forwarding, covering in leather, onlays and inlays, and gold tooling to create unique design and cover for usually one-off book. For me, making books started from love of reading and literature. And when I started to make books, I think I wanted to know the way how it was made before machine entered our lives. So these were La Prose by Sonia Delaunay, first 2 images, and In Principio by Dobbs Press. And the last one, this one, is a miniature book commission I did for the centenary of Queen Mary's Doll's House Library in Windsor Castle. The height of this book is a 45mm. Next image. And the next one. So the project I will mainly share today is called Pain Memory, which is in the exhibition. The title of this book comes from something I read, that memory and pain share a common neurotransmitter called glutamate, and it suggests that brain deals with these 2 processes in the similar way. And this book started from very personal experience of pain. I live with chronic pain, and as an artist, when in difficult situations like 3 in the morning after many sleepless nights, I turned to drawing. And next 7 slides are some of these drawings. The original images were pencil drawn at night with my left hand. I'm normally right-handed. And it's drawn over 7 to 8 month period, mostly at night, sometimes with my eyes closed or like not directly looking, trying to feel where the pain is coming from and what the pain looks like. And each drawing is an accumulation of a few days to a few weeks. So next one. So I don't know whether you can read it, but pain is a universal human experience. We all know what pain is, but it's utterly private and inexplicable in many ways. And communicating pain is very difficult. Some of these texts reflect that sentiment. These words, some are my own experience combined with other chronic pain sufferers, and others are from McGill Pain Questionnaire, which was developed in the 70s, helping individuals to give their doctors a good description of the quality and intensity of pain they're experiencing. It's a process of understanding your own pain, but also learning the language of the pain. And this page and the last word here is blank. If you go to the next. And as Emily Dickinson famously said, pain has an element of blank. It cannot recollect when it began or if there were a time when it was not. Works of Emily Dickinson, Susan Sontag, Sarah Kay, and Samuel Beckett was around during making this book. Next, please. Other text pages contain medically unexplained conditions with pain, medications used for the chronic pain, as well as what I call night page and light page. Next page, please. And the last quotation is from Rumi. The cure for the pain is in the pain. If you go to the next one. So all the texts were typewritten using manual typewriter. And then both the images and text were then made into a photopolymer etching plate, which is shown at the top, the greenish color plate. Then it went through the process of inking, wiping, and printing. And then and it was printed using American French tool etching press, showing at the right at the bottom right. And if you go to the next, these are some photos showing inside of the books. And then the sheets are collated, sewn, and cases are made, fully blocked, bound, and boxes are made. It's the whole process. And the last slide is some of the photos of finished book. And I'm really happy that this book has been selected for the exhibition, and thank you.
Thank you all so much. This was really incredible and inspiring. I know we're running a little bit short on time. I'm guessing the students have a lot of questions. People who need to leave can leave. We might go a few minutes over for anyone who's able to. But let's do one more round of applause for all of that. Thank you so much. Who has a question? I'm watching the chat as well, so virtual audience, feel free to enter any questions as well.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me? Kind of.
Speak loud.
Okay. For Maureen Cummins, I was wondering why you chose to do an accordion fold in the book.
You have to unmute, Maureen. Thanks.
Thanks for your question. I chose the accordion because I wanted the book to both be held in a codex binding, which it is. It has a spine, but then it tucks in at the end, and you can untuck it and unfurl it so that you see the succession of the fetus growing in the belly. And I wanted that visual punch to the book. That's why.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, I have one, if that's okay, while you all think about it. So one thing I'm always curious about, of course, we're in a museum. Your books are on display in a museum exhibit, but they're held in our library collection. And as we heard from your biographies, they're held both in museums and libraries. And I just wonder, as creators, how you feel about sort of the distinction between your books being in a museum collection where they're primarily going to be seen, in a case behind glass, versus in a library where people are going to be interacting with them, handling them, researching them, using them in that hands-on versus hands-off way. Anyone?
Okay. Hello. While I'm very grateful to have my work in museums, it is a roadblock really for artist books, and so it makes me really glad when my book is in a library, because I know that it gets looked at and held, and somebody could see all the pages and not just a few. That's what it's made for. But that's and that's why a lot of my work is in libraries rather than other kinds of public collections, because it is meant to be held and done something with and have some kind of human interaction.
Thank you.
I just always try to do what I can to have my books accessible. So sometimes for exhibitions, I send in an extra handling copy so that they can be looked at and touched. I would rather that happen than for hands and bodies. So
That's a great option. Yeah, thank you.
For me, I think book going to a teaching collection is always really exciting, and a lot of libraries have classes where use those books to teach, and I think that's when I feel really rewarded by it, and like it gets exposed to lots of students, and people can look at it and things. And I think even though it goes to libraries, I think each library or each museum has a different policies about like how to touch them, how to use them. So that's not something I can have any control over, but I think it's great that it gets used.
Thank you all. Any questions? No questions.
No question.
All right, it's last class, very end of the semester. So, but thank you all so very much for your time and sharing about your work and about yourselves. It's really exciting to see your works on display here, and so much more meaningful to now know so much more about their backstories and how they came to be, and about all of you. So thank you very much, and thanks to all of you who came online, and have a wonderful rest of your day. And there was a hand.
Oh, no.
There was a hand.